2012 regular meeting of the Trimet board in session. So with that, the first item on our agenda is the general manager and board report. So I'm going to turn over to the general manager for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Board President. Good morning, everyone. A few items to go through. We also have a very short presentation that may lead to a number of questions from board members, so we'll go through all of that. First of all, I did want to report to you on the arbitrator's ruling. As you know, about 2 weeks ago, the arbitrator issued his ruling related to the Trimet ATU contract proposal and selected the management proposal. That should come as great relief to our riders. We would have, as you know, faced additional service reductions or fare increases totaling $5 million had that not been the case. So that is very good news for our riders and for the region. We will begin the implementation and are beginning the implementation of the final order. It's retroactive to December 1st, 2009. You should also know that it expires in just a few months, at November 30th, 2012. I would also want to emphasize at this point that union employees continue to have very high quality, very affordable health insurance. But there will be higher co-pays for prescriptions, deductibles, and out-of-pocket maximums. So it's beginning to reform the plan, but I would also note that it's still a very high-quality plan for those employees. Similarly for retirees, they will also see some changes in their health coverage. Now, many details need to be implemented and worked through. Some of those are likely to be contentious. But our goal is to do that as clearly and as quickly as possible. We're communicating with the ATU along the way as we do that. You also should know about, and I have communicated and sent to you, a recent Employment Relations Board ruling against Trimet last week, but that changed nothing related to the arbitrator's reward. The ruling actually calls for Trimet to do what it was already doing, which is to make employees whole at a certain date, and our making them whole actually goes back to the beginning of the contract. So we will continue to move forward with retroactively implementing the contract. But as you all know, this is not the end of the matter, and we do look forward to working with the ATU leadership on the next contract, which again we begin negotiations this fall. And I would also just make the point that without continuing structural change to our benefit structure, the Trimet will not be financially secure. So we still have a distance to go related to employee benefits and our cost structure. I also wanted to just report to you about record ridership. In fiscal year 12, Trimet provided 102 million trips on our system. So that's an all-time record. That's up 2.2% compared to last year, and that was pretty even growth between bus and rail. But West was actually jumped 13% on a fiscal year basis, a fiscal year comparison. So very good news. I also have another piece of very good news, which is that we applied for, with the Federal Transit Administration, a grant called the State of Good Repair, and we were awarded $5 million in that program, competitive program nationally. And these funds will be used to augment our new buses. And what is really good news is that we have contacted already our bus manufacturer, Gillig, and have increased our order size for next year by what that grant allows, another 14 buses. So that puts our order for next year up to 68 buses, adding to the 55 that we're in delivery as we speak. And so obviously that's important for a number of reasons, but first of all, it gives us a younger bus fleet with better mileage, lower emissions, and lower maintenance costs. And all of those things are really important. Indeed, provide a great deal more comfort to our riders. So we're really pleased with that news as well. Just a quick update on the Portland-Milwaukee project. Over the weekend, we did have some traffic issues related to our closure of Powell Boulevard as we dropped the overpass that needs to be rebuilt from Portland-Milwaukee near 17th. And that was successfully done on time, on schedule, so that was really good news. The new crossing will be providing a new and better crossing for light rail, pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. And that work is beginning as we speak. This past Monday, I also did a little visit to a facility in Tiger, the Bob Company, where the company president gave us a tour of the site, where the major steel girders that are going for what is going to be placed and have been placed, and what is the longest bridge on the project, which is actually from First Avenue in Southwest Portland down to the South Waterfront area. And those girders are massive, and there's a large number of them. And it was very important to this company locally, given the employment situation and the fact that they were actually able to maintain a workforce despite the drop-off of a number of other orders and businesses. So a great local sourcing of that, of those bridge girders. On the river bridge, I would note that the foundation shafts are complete now on both sides. The east side has now completed shafts for the foundation. The pile cap, sort of the second of the big pours, as we would call them, is actually scheduled here for August. And then at the south end of the alignment, construction is beginning on the Kellogg Creek Bridge that actually carries the light rail over Kellogg Lake and McLaughlin Boulevard to the side of McLaughlin Boulevard. More great news on that, which is ODOT approved this week a $1.2 million transit enhancement grant that we worked with the city of Milwaukee. So now that bridge will also carry a pedestrian bridge over the same distance. So that is a great win for the city of Milwaukee. It's been something that they have really felt is important. And from our standpoint, a really important enhancement to the project because of the pedestrian safety aspects of that. So building the two together will also save time and money, and I think it's another focus of how these projects do bring a great deal of focus and improvement beyond just the light rail to the neighborhoods we work in. With that, I did want to turn to Martín Gonzalez, who is is going to give us a bit of a presentation in response to some questions that board member Zaragoza had issued about our limited English proficiency program, how we deal with cultural competency on our system, how we assign drivers to various routes on our system, and I think this is to a large extent responsive to the issues that we faced on line 57 some time ago. So, Martín?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board President Warner, board members, and my father. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share some of our work. I'm going to be going over some of those slides. I mean, they would have been projected, but it won't be projected today because I want to make sure I don't have the distractions in regards to technology and get even more nervous than I already am. So I'm basically going to go over, as if I was looking at the slides in some ways. So Trimet serves is a broad and diverse community, and providing access to information to our programs and services for all our customers is a priority. It is our intent to make sure our system is accessible and easy to use as possible. To accomplish this, we expect to deliver on our commitment to serve our community with service that is safe, dependable, responsive, easy, and inviting. We're guided by our shared values to be responsive and inclusive, to solve problems creatively, and to do the right thing on behalf of our customers. That is the Trimet way, and this is our approach that guides our work with the LED customers. I should point out that Trimet has a long-standing commitment to develop and implement a plan that ensures meaningful access for our riders and customers that have limited English proficiency. And limited English proficiency persons are defined because of their national origin, do not speak English as their primary language, and have limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English. So we started our work in Trimet examining the existing, on the second thing there, examining the work of Trimet by examining the existing services of Trimet, recommending new areas of focus, and developing language access plans to serve our customers. In 2005, I'd like to point out that when we first analyzed the data, about 4% of the total population was identified as LEP. And recently we looked at the 2010 census data, and the map that you have before you kind of points out the populations that are present and the numbers that holds. These are the LEP populations that really that meet the threshold identified by the Department of Transportation guidelines as either 1,000 or 5% of the total population. So if you look at the next slide, and there is a graph there. So out of the total population that is identified as LEP, these are the languages that are identified, again, meeting that minimum threshold. And the largest percentage, 60% of those LEPs are Spanish-speaking. Vietnamese followed by 8.3%, Russian 6.1%. And if we combine Chinese, Cantonese about 6.4%, and Korean about 4%, and Ukrainian that you see at there is about 2.5%. So we move on to the next slide. This is, in essence, the framework. When we're looking at developing the LEP plan, the agency identified 7 categories: language assistance, vital documents, training, definitions and standards, customer information, outreach, and research, to focus basically for our work. And in doing that, basically we did a 4-factor analysis that are basically listed there in terms of the number of proportional persons that are LEP encounter, which again, looking at that census data, the frequency of the contact, nature and importance of the program, and the resources available to it. I mean, these are, in essence, reasonable steps that are taken to ensure that meaningful access is provided to LEP persons to critical services without imposing, kind of an undue burden on agencies, organizations, because there are some other agencies that are smaller than us. So this is the general guidance that is being provided to us. In the next slide, we try to point out some of the outreach and activities and programs that the plan resulted in that sense in regards to implementing the guidelines to implementing our work. An example of that is providing language assistance through the use of 238 Right and other customers' activities that you see in the handouts. I'd like to highlight some of the things that are here. Even though we have, for example, the languages, the primary languages identified here, through 238 Right, an LEP customer that is not necessarily identified here can also access language assistance, by the way. But this guides more in terms of some of the other materials that we produce that are much more vital. We have multilingual brochures, we have transit tracker by phone, we have a 3-planner in Spanish, we have web pages that provide access on and the initial 5 languages that were identified: Korean, Russian, Vietnamese, Spanish, and Chinese. We have also made inroads, I think, in some of the displays that we have inside of the buses, as we have channel cars that provide some reference to fare information, also have access customer information and other things like that. So, looking at some of the other work that we do, and that is the work internally, out of all the employees, I should mention that 23% of the workforce are employees of color. And if we look at specifically at bus and rail operators, they comprise, operators of color comprise about 27% of the workforce. This is an improvement over some of the data that was in 2011. So how does Trimet go about recruiting? So Trimet uses a variety of recruiting efforts to attract diverse populations. Promoting job openings to professional minority groups. We have websites, contact with agencies and job fairs that serve female and minority populations. Distributes announcements to 48 agencies and staff. Networks with colleges, universities, and technical professional schools and professional associations. Staff also works in partnership with community organizations and participates in community events such as the Martin Luther King Breakfast, Cinco de Mayo, Asian Reporter, Black United Fund, Native American Youth and Family Association, Urban League, Pride, Minority Enterprise Development Week, just to name a few. Trimet advertises also in the Hispanic News, Asian Reporter, Scanner, Ordinal Server. In light of some of the questions posed by Director Zaragoza, I tried to find out some information, and Trimet does not require bilingual, multilingual information to be provided by employees or job applicants to operators positions. Thus, it does not maintain information on the language spoken by its employees. And there are some difficulties in assigning operators to speak a particular language to lines that have a higher population of non-English speaking riders. Our routes are selected by seniority, so assigning routes by language fluency will require a contract negotiations and will be viewed as a seniority takeaway. The other issue that comes up is that we have is that in order to have the most efficient run cuts and save significant money, Trimet internalize our routes. This means that a bus that begins in Sherwood could end up in Gresham, and then later on that day we'll do a trip to Spectator. So one of the things that I think also came out in regards to discussion is what are we doing in terms of training, and wanted to point out that in terms of the training that is being done internally, there is a respectful workforce training. And this mandatory course defines bias harassment, sexual harassment, and discrimination, and discusses Trimet's harassment policy and workplace expectations. Training has been delivered by HR staff in fiscal year 11 to approximately 322 management and frontline employees from across the agency. Additionally, new bus operators and service workers entering the agency are required to attend a class called Respectful Workplace, Your Role and Responsibilities as part of the orientation process. Operations training staff also delivers a training module for operational diversity in the LEP program. In addition, customer information services director and myself delivered a LEP presentation to almost all of the departments, including operations managers, on the LEP program. And this past spring, the agency conducted a day-long training titled Safety and Service Excellence, involving all operations supervisors. A component of that training dealt with improving our culture competency. There were about 156 participants, which amounts to about almost all of our transportation supervisors. So what's next? My time is almost up. So that's what's next. So what we have done, just this past month, we sent out an LEP survey to basically all of the administrative staff, including some of the operations, to find out what they knew, what else we need to do in regards to training, to be able to identify some of those things that we need to work on internally. And this fall, a new recertification class will be implemented with operators. It is envisioned that one component will include an element of becoming more effective working with a diverse customer base. The operations supervisor training that I referenced earlier will continue this next spring. Operations division also has a trainer who serves as a coach to operators needing to improve their skills working with customers. I should mention that we try to do our best in these challenging financial times to align employee resources and finding creative ways to what we have. We continue to look for opportunities to train the trainer. Last year, a number of staff participated in the Northwest Public Employees Diversity Conference, of which Trimet was a sponsor. And this year, the conference will be held on October 30th, with the team building a culture of inclusion and multiculturalism. We expect that once again we will participate with key staff in that conference. Meantime, should mention that, as you can see on the slide, one of the things that we have done is we continue to do outreach, actively engage in participating with the risk community in the risk community events and activities, and at times we host focus group discussions to be able to look at what else do we need to do to be able to improve our work. So, in summary, this is a work in progress, but we are committed to ensure that all of our employees are equipped to address the needs of our diverse customer base. And if there are any questions, if not, already take up enough free time.
Yeah, I do have. First of all, thank you. Really good information, and I know Trimet has been working toward making sure all of our customers have access and understand. What really brought this home for me was the last incident. I guess it was June, July, June. Yeah. And the concern for me was, again, it was kind of a trend with this particular operator, and the issue around safety. To me, it was, if there was an issue, a person has a second language, there isn't really anyone to be able to communicate with them, and then it turns into a more unsafe situation, and no one understands what's going on. So that for me was of concern. So the questions, of course, I brought up well, and I know that we have a contract in place, and there's very specific things that we need to follow in the contract. So my question is, and I don't know what the answer is now, but what will we do in the future? Because our ridership will continue to change and continue to be diverse and continue to have be LEP. So what can we do? And you can't predict the situations that are going to happen on the bus, but how will we be equipped to be able to be able to support what is occurring, not only for the operator, but obviously for the ridership. So that's a concern that I had, and I know Trimet's working toward being able to have things in place, and there are things in place. But to me, there is a gap. And so how is that going to be mitigated? And then secondly, I know this is also around contract, around the hire of bilingual staff or multilingual staff. And I know that it's by seniority. And again, that to me will mitigate, will support the safety of ridership. So I know there's no easy answer, but I really do think that this is something that is not going to go away, that will also increase in the future. And then last, these are maybe more comments, and you've answered some of my questions that I had, is the cultural competence training. And it's great that our supervisors have gotten that. But again, how does that translate from the top of the agency to our operators and other folks? Because it's not just one piece of the agency that we need to make sure is having training and having cultural competence and having understanding of our large diverse community. So I guess the question is, how will we be able to support not only management but our employees that are on the ground doing the work to have that understanding? Because again, I believe that we cannot just do specific training for specific areas to really have a culturally competent agency. And I know that takes time, but I really believe that needs to be addressed at some level. So those were more comments.
Do you want to start, Frankie? And some of the questions.
I'm not sure if you want me to start. I was struck by the last part of your statement in regards to what can we do to support management. Of course, if you have a large, pot of money somewhere along the line to invest much more in training, I think that would be, from my perspective, again, and I speak only for myself, it would be much more ideal. Because I think that there is at least the concerns that I hear from people is that we have cut back on some of our training, and we're trying to do more with the limited resources that are there. So people, at least the training folks are tasked to do more with less resources and less time to be able to do those things. So I think that at some point, I think the agency needs to be looking at, how do we prioritize this more in regards to the training and have already invested in training. And that's why I mentioned whether he wanted to respond to that. The other part, and I think that this is what is being done. I think I mentioned there in terms of the recertification of drivers and also the the requirements for new drivers in regards to going to certain classes. I think those are steps that are being taken to try to mitigate some of those things. And the other part of it is, I think, there are discussions, happening right now in regards to what is the behavior that we want to model, and who's doing that already, because there are a number of staff that are already modeling that behavior that we want to continue to support. And so being more creative in regards to looking at those opportunities, to be able to then have those folks basically be part of the training components that are taking place, so that way we take advantage of what is being done well. We don't do it as much, I think, from my perspective, but I think that's one thing that we can leverage, those type of resources that we already have in general.
If I might just add, the other thing, the other topic you raised, Board Member Saragosa, is hiring. And I think we have really stepped up our efforts to reach out to a much more diverse community related to hiring efforts. And I think as Martine noted, we now have, if you think about our operations, transportation workforce is now, 27% people of color. So we're doing, I think, a good job of that, and I think we want to do more and more of that, and we are putting more and more resources behind that. And I just say, and it's a little bit more anecdotal than statistical, but when I go to each of the new employee orientation classes, I'm really very impressed with the diversity that we're beginning to get out of our new graduating classes into the bus operator ranks. I think we really are making good progress there. And I think Martine raises a very important point. This board has been very generous in the past in supporting additional resources for training, and you recall that was really the centerpiece of our safety effort. And I think you raised, Board Member Zaragoza, a very important point that safety translates to this area as well, in terms of how do you make sure that customers and our frontline staff can communicate and make sure that people don't get themselves spiraled into an unsafe situation. And so because of that, the cultural competency will be added to the annual recertification for operators this year, as well as our supervisor training, which we just started this last year. So we are beginning to ramp those up to our frontline employees, but I would grant you that, and grant our team that the resources overall for training are short, just given our budget situation and where we have been. A couple of notes on that.
Yeah, just one question on that. And again, do we have any targeted, or can we have any targeted specific classification that for a need for being bilingual? Do we do that, or have we done that, or is that a possibility?
We can do that with our management staff, but we're not able to do that under the union contract because there's a job description that we fill, which is pretty generic. Now, it's up to us. The one thing we do have control over is the intake. So we can look for more applicants that have multiple language skills, and we are doing that. But it is, it has to be mixed in with all the other mix of qualifications around the job description, which is part of the union contract.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I certainly understand that. And again, just to say again, is that I think that the future is going to bring us a different picture. It's already begun, and if we cannot respond to some of the need, again, I think that there will be other situations that we will have to mitigate in different ways.
I absolutely agree. And the other thing that I would note is that a bus operator, for example, or a Line 57 operator, has backup and has support in terms of the supervisory workforce and getting other people involved if there is an issue or something. And one of the faults that we noted in the discipline action was that that operator did not do that and put their customers in a difficult situation, unsafe situation. Fortunately, it all turned out well, but nonetheless, that was not the way you want to see our operators treat our customers. And so, even if there is this dispute, they should be on the radio getting backup, getting help to their situation, and not try to handle it themselves.
So, just one last question, because I know we need to move on. So if any operator needs backup because a person's second language is Spanish or Chinese, whatever that is, they would have that available. Can they have that availability for a translator or for someone to help with that situation?
I don't know that we have it on a real-time basis, but we do have the supervisors who can come help, which is sometimes a second person who can then, hopefully will bring some better, sometimes better skills.
I think that capacity is much more limited in that way. I know that they have this some personnel at dispatch that have been bilingual. What we have provided, particularly like when people come in person, is like the Trimet ticket office and basically interpret over the phone if we don't have a bilingual person. The same thing coming to the ride and holidays. It's much more difficult to do it on the bus itself. So I think that's the challenge, of course.
Thank you. Can I request maybe at least on an annual basis, or maybe every 6 months, that we have an update as this progresses? I think that would just be really good information to have.
Very good.
Conversation. Any other comments or questions from the board for Martin? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good report.
Mr. Board President, just one last item. I did want to report to the board on the student pass program, the last item in my report. And I did, as you are all well aware, we struck a deal with Mayor Adams and City Hall to continue the youth pass for this 12-13 school year. It's a one-year agreement at this point in time. Recall that the program is valued at 2.9. Now, actually, the value of the passes we provide is more like 3.9, but we valued this based on the fair revenue we would have received had there not been a program, and that was $2.9 million. And that does give free passes to the 13,000 high school students in the Portland School District who ride Trimet to get to class and other activities. The city and Trimet agreed to fund the program this year with the assistance of the Portland School District. The school district will be contributing $950,000 to the effort. The city of Portland $200,000, and then Trimet will absorb the rest of foregone revenue. And we have an agreement with the city to work to look for ways to save money to offset some of that foregone revenue over the years ahead. And this nice thing I think about this one-time agreement, it does recognize that we have a lot of work ahead. It sets a pattern for future years of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which we talked about before. And it also calls for establishing a working group in the first quarter of 2013 that would begin to develop the program and what the continued sustainable program should look like. And what that template should be for future years. So this will come back to you, obviously, during that period of time. I'll also solicit your thoughts and views, not necessarily today, about how and who should be involved in that work group. I think this agreement preserves a very close and important working relationship we have with the City of Portland, whether it be the Portland-Milwaukee streetcar or light rail project or streetcar, that, for example, a master agreement will be considered later today. And it also builds ridership and begins to build the next generation of riders. I made the pitch to some of our suburban jurisdictions that actually the pattern ought to be, how do we expand this program regionally, which really requires that the Trimet service be stronger regionally so that other school districts would be in a position of actually taking advantage of a program like this and building on what I think is a better solution for high school transportation than a duplicate set of yellow school buses that are around our region. That's a long ways off because our service is not, frankly, ubiquitous enough in most parts of the region to be able to provide that duplicate service. So with that, Mr. Board President, concludes my report.
Questions, comments from the board? Okay, I guess I just want to say congratulations on the $5 million grant. If my math is correct, that's 123 new buses.
Not quite. That's about 14 new buses.
Total new
Total.
buses will be on the road about when?
They will probably be by next fall.
Next fall, okay. So that's important. That's a major improvement in the fleet. So congratulations on the award and also getting those buses on the way. Thank you. All right, moving on then. The next thing we have on the agenda is a report from Director Bethel regarding the Committee on Accessible Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Board members, you do have a briefing report before you. I won't go over the entire report, but just to welcome our new and continuing officers for CAT. Dan Campbell is continuing to serve as chair, and Carly Robertson as vice chair. Terry Watson is the executive committee member at large, and Chris Walker is here this morning. He is a new appointee to the CAT committee, and we welcome him. It's also very good that the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project is going to continue to have an ad hoc committee with CAT to be advised and discuss those things that are around accessibility and those features for each of the stations as we move forward. I think that will go a very, very long way in helping to make things more accessible for those with disabilities as well as those who are able to walk right. Without any mobility devices or crutches or anything like that, it will be much safer and easier for everyone. So I want to commend CAT for doing that and for Trimet agreeing to work along with that. That, Mr. President, concludes my brief report, and I'll entertain any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Any questions on the board? Okay, thank you, Dr. Bethel. Very helpful. We usually have a report from our Finance and Audit Committee, but we haven't met yet, so we'll defer that. So with that, I'm going to move right on to the consent agenda, and we have 3 items on the consent agenda which are routine and may be approved by the board in a single motion. So I would ask if there's a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the resolutions. The first resolution is Resolution 12-07-64, which is authorizing a streetcar master agreement and a streetcar operating agreement with the City of Hillsborough. The board has had a briefing on this, and I know some changes were made as a result of that briefing. Mr. General Manager, maybe you can tee this up for us.
You bet. City of Portland.
What did I say?
Hillsborough. That actually was going to be perhaps my last comment.
Thank you for noting that.
Which was, again, that I think actually as we talked during the briefing, this may be a template for other kinds of transit service and developments that may occur around the region, perhaps including the City of Hillsborough.
There you go. Thank you. Nice recovery.
But I would just note, I wanted to thank the board for digging into this as much as you have and spending the time at the briefing that you have. And that I want to just make the point that the comments that Dr. Bethel made and that Board Member Clark had made have been embedded into the revised agreement, and I think it's a stronger agreement for those additions that the board has made to it. Just very briefly, I think this moves the partnership between Trimet and the City of Portland related to streetcar to a new plateau. I would say that up to now it has worked well, but it's been pretty ad hoc. And so this begins to put some structure to it. It begins to define future responsibilities of both the city and Trimet. And as I think you've heard me say many times, it's the most important thing for us financially is to be able to plan where we need to go and have some security about what the issues that we're going to be facing in the future are. And I think this agreement is a big step up in that regard. I would also just want to make a couple of comments about the streetcar itself. And I think these were brought out during the briefing as well, which is that the streetcar is actually operating at a very low cost per passenger. We have some MAX services that might be a bit lower, but it's as good as any of our frequent bus services and most of our light rail lines in terms of operating cost per passenger. So it's an efficient operation and efficient service. It's also provided some key service, I think, for important parts of our central city community. It's not just the Pearl District, by the way. It is downtown. It's Portland State University. It's all the subsidized housing developments that we know are in the downtown area. So it serves a very diverse population and a very important part of our downtown circulation plan. Now, that will grow, obviously, onto the east side here starting this fall, and we know that there's going to be some market development time associated with that. But I think, again, it begins to show that it's a broader service than just, as some have thought, sort of something that's good for the developers of downtown. And it is really a very broad-based service that serves a very diverse population. And I would also say that it's been a system that has allowed us to grow service without us paying every last penny of it. So, for example, the capital costs have been borne by the city and the local property owners in the area. And again, well, we certainly share right now roughly half of the operating costs, the other half is provided by other services. So there's a great benefit in terms of bringing more resources to public transit and to providing strong public transit in this important marketplace. So I think these are both important agreements. Again, the master agreement sets the stage long term. It's very open-ended, but it does set some parameters and some organizational structure together to really guide the relationship moving forward. And then the operating agreement begins to actually authorize the funds that we do transfer to the city to support the operations over the next few years. So with that, I would recommend approval or entertain any additional questions the board may have.
So any questions or comments this time?
Yeah, I do have one, and it is more of a technical question. First of all, I'd like to congratulate staff in putting this together. I think it's a really good document. I think it's always good to have the rules of the road and the partnership clearly laid out so partners understand their obligations. One of the things that is included in here is talking about establishing some metrics to determine the success of a streetcar line, and I think that's wonderful. The more we can do that, the better. My technical question is that one of the metrics is payroll tax income to indicate growth of employment along the line. And it sounds great, but in a prior life, prior employment, I was charged with checking the Trimet to find out, to try to get information about payroll tax generated within a given jurisdiction. And in discussions with the finance staff at the time, Beth's predecessor, I was led to understand that Trimet cannot identify by geographic area, which quite honestly makes sense if you think of large employers like Intel with many campuses, or Fred Meyers or whatever, where those receipts are paid centrally. So I'm just curious on this metric of the growth in payroll tax attributable to a streetcar line. How will that be determined?
As Alan here, please.
Sorry, briefly.
Joining Alan, by the way, is Art Peters from the city's Department of Transportation.
He's been one of the main staff from the city working with us on this agreement. Briefly, it is difficult to do that. And part of the work plan for this fiscal year is to figure out exactly what the geography would be and exactly how we do that. And it may very well be that we take indicators that are proxies for the total amount, but that we can get enough indicators so that we can see the growth and change over time. And that's what really matters. It's that growth over time.
Right.
Where are we heading with it rather than the exact number.
Okay, so you're not going to be setting up a new accounting system or requiring more reporting from employers?
Right. We're trying to make sure that this is the reporting and the analysis of this is as sustainable as possible without adding new work to anybody else, especially our finance staff.
Okay. And I think that I anticipate that I might get some questions from my prior associations. I'll have the answer. Thank you.
All right, so we have two people who want to testify on this item. Thank you very much. The first is Ari Fontes, and I do have some information he's handed out to the board. I'm going to pass that over to you folks. And then, by the way, after that is Jared France. So if you want to come up here too, you can do that also.
Good morning. Name's Ari Martin, I'm Oswego. And if you would go ahead and look at the trucks. I support the resolution. I think it's very well written also. However, I believe it requires a simple amendment. And these charts pretty much explain why. The first one shows the disparity in fare recovery ratio between West and streetcar on one side and bus and max on the other. You see they're totally out of line. The reasons why are explained in charts 2 and 3. Passenger revenue per boarding ride on streetcar is unbelievably 5 cents under the current fare structure. And it will be going up, probably go up to somewhere around 30 cents. But bus, West, and Max will all be above $1 after the new increases come in. Operating cost per boarding ride. Streetcar is low. It's about the same as Max. So if it had Trimet-like fares, we wouldn't have this huge disparity. We wouldn't have to be shipping all this millions of dollars every year over there. Streetcar and Max have competing purposes. Streetcar is for development. I beg your pardon. Streetcar and Trimet. Streetcar is for development. Trimet is to serve present and future transportation needs. They're overlapping, but they're also competing. Mr. Rick Gustafson, PSI's executive director, told us in Lake Oswego a year and a half ago that streetcar has brought 14,000 new cars onto Portland streets. It is not about eliminating congestion. It's about bringing development. When you clear the smoke, the real question, and it's a rough one, is where exactly in ORS 267 or any other governing law does Trimet get off raising our taxes, raising our fares, eliminating our service, and yet throwing so much money at streetcar that it can undercut Trimet fares? That's the nut of it. Streetcar is not all peaches and dreams. It's slow, especially in mixed traffic. It's expensive. It costs 50% per hour more to run. And because of the slowness in mixed traffic, the actual cost of operating in real life approaches 100% more. It's inflexible. You can't move it. It has its own set of safety hazards, just like Max. There are problems with bikes getting caught in tracks. The vehicles cannot stop rapidly. It adds congestion. The solution. I asked for an amendment to the resolution to declare that as of a given date, say January 1st, Trimet's discretionary funding of streetcar is dependent upon streetcar abandoning its streetcar-only fares and incorporating Trimet's fare system. It's that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. I do have a copy of the written testimony here. I've got one. I'll give this to Kelly.
There's tactical first.
Good morning, Trimet board members. My name is Jerry Franz. I'm a policy associate with Opal. Try to be brief, as these streetcar documents are essentially an agreement to agree in the future, and there isn't much to say about arrangements today, and substantial as that. However, there are several specific concerns raised by what little detail these documents do include. The most important of these concerns is the nebulous way in which these agreements formalize a link between streetcar funding and frequent bus service. I shouldn't need to convince this board of the importance of frequent bus service. In 2010, GM Neil McFarland called frequent bus service the lifeblood of our system. And we know from conversations with Neil and others in the agency that Trimet genuinely recognizes the need for and importance of this service. Trimet was once a national leader in the development of frequent bus service. But as the agency's addiction to service cuts and fare increases only intensified over the years, this once proud leadership has been reversed. In fact, at current service levels, frequent bus service in Portland is little more than a marketing mission. Excluding the morning and evening weekday commutes, when service levels on all bus lines are more frequent, there is now only one bus line in the entire system that runs every 10 minutes or less, which is 72. Only 2 other lines, 4 and 14, still have average off-peak headways of 15 minutes or less. Federal guidelines define frequent service as every...
Increases will be attached to training and the detainment of fare beaters. There are concerns about the long-distance appointment system used to select board members. Residents want to know why board meetings are not scheduled so that the working and student class can attend and express their opinions and concerns. The transit riders want to know why it's not required that there are transit-dependent personnel on the board. Also, why are testimonies going to be allowed only after decisions are made? Is this a step at a transparency, saying that you really don't care about the bus riders' opinions? The transit riders want to know why there's not, I find that people in East Portland are deeply concerned that the board budget planning, that there's never a best or worst budget scenario, so that there are options instead of breaking the transit riders once again. In closing, I find the people of East Portland have little or no faith that the board has any concerns for their problems. In some cases, it has been suggested that the coalition of the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers couldn't do a worse job of budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last two I have signed up for David Sale and Ari Plunkett. Please come on up.
Well, I've already talked to once. I already talked once. Go ahead.
My name's David Sale. Most of you all know me, a few of you don't. Mr. Warner, Mr. Stovall, welcome to the board whenever that took place. Give you a little background. My daughter was hit and killed by a bus back in April of 2010. She and four of her friends were in a crosswalk, and they got mowed over in the crosswalk. Driver took an illegal left-hand turn from an unscheduled courtesy stop, mowed him over, drug him 60 feet, backed over him, ran him over again, and then turned the bus off. The bus kneeled on top of my daughter, who was stuck in the right front wheel well. When that bus kneeled, it crushed her. So that's just a little on my background. In the last 2 years, I've been promoting better driver behavior among transit agencies across the United States. And what I found on the 2-year anniversary week, we did a protest down at the Center Street Garage, and it wasn't really a protest, just a reminder to tell the drivers to safety is first, and it starts with them. And second of all, to drive that bus as if someone's life depends on it. While I was there picketing for that event, I noticed over 400 buses left that Center Street Garage without doing a pre-trip inspection. If you look up the requirements of a CDL to haul passengers of your freight, that is a #1 requirement, is to do a pre-trip inspection on the vehicle that you're hauling your freight in. That didn't happen that day. And I don't know if it happens today, but I don't plan on standing down there every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning to analyze that. We filmed over 200 of those buses doing that procedure. Things have to change, guys. It's been 2 years, over 2 years, and we're up to the same tricks. Nothing's changed. You know it as well as I do. And you guys continue to ignore it. Your training program has to change. The attitudes of your drivers have to change. The driver that just quit her job instead of being fired had 39 complaints. I don't know how many times that I would have been at a job, and if I had 39 complaints, I don't think I would have made it past 10. So let's do something different, Neil. Let's try a new plan, a new approach. The safety task force didn't work. Changing your training program, I don't see anything to change. If they're not doing pre-trip inspections, you can imagine what else they're doing out on the road. So please, please, look into it. Don't take a second notion to look into it. I've discussed this with Mr. Supporta, and that's only one thing, that crossing it, that we've got 15 buses running a red light in 1 hour and 7 minutes on Foster and 79th, I believe, 72nd, right in that area. They continue to do it today. The reply from Shelley Lomax is that the Department of Transportation changed that light so that the light wasn't turning so quickly on the bus drivers. Well, it does the same thing today as it did back then, and they're continuing to do it. So nothing's changing, except I guess pedestrians are just getting quicker and jumping out of the way in time. like the guy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that pulled his legs out from underneath the bus after it hit him, and he pulled them out just in time before they were crushed. And it's on the internet. You can take a look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Sales. And again, so sorry for your loss. Ari?
Thank you. I wonder if you go look and pull out the sheets that you have earlier. And in the context of talking about streetcar, I want to talk a little bit about West. On the back of the charts, there's another chart that shows the comparison of West with the 16 worst performing bus routes. And what simply comes out is that West costs more than the 16, the amount of money Trimet has to put into West is more than it's put in worst performing 16 bus routes, and yet those same 16 routes provide rides to more than twice as many riders. Some of these will have cuts this year. For example, number 36, South Shore, the one that's closest to Mr. Prosser, had 4 runs cut, early morning, late evening, making it unusable for the people who have to be at work earlier. Go late. Pardon. And yet, West keeps rolling on. West is not your fault. When they were telling earlier boards this will be fantastic, nobody else has anything like this intersuburban rail. Nobody bothered to ask the question, why? And so we have West. To get, it's going to cost us over $6 million for ops this year, another few $100,000 for capital. We don't know what the future capital costs or how much they're going to be, but just with regular inflation, West is going to cost us over $140 million over the remaining 17 years of the guaranteed period. And to reach a mediocre level of success where the drain per passenger isn't any more than what is on the average bus or max, would require an increase in ridership or fares somehow about 10 to 12 times of what it is now. The chances of that happening are about the same whether you allow West to run with throwing as much money as it needs, unrestricted, over the next 17 years, or close it down tomorrow. It's not your fault. And you can't stop the hemorrhaging. The one thing you can do is control, put a limit on the hemorrhaging. The way to do that is to close it down. Unlike the bus services and MAX, every single West stop is served by another transit service, all the way from Wilsonville to Beaverton. You don't have to use West to get from A to B. It is strictly an expensive luxury that we cannot afford. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the list of folks I have signed up for public testimony. Seeing no more, is there any final comments or thoughts from the board? Based on anything here? Okay. I guess I'd just like to know, maybe we could get a report on sometime in the future on just kind of the safety update, what's been done since the accident.
We actually have that program for this fall. So
Okay, very good, because I know a lot has been done. I feel for the gentleman's loss, but I also know that we are making some progress, and I think it's valid to maybe talk about some of these things that we have done. So with that, we'll conclude the meeting, and we'll see everybody next month. Thank you.
12 minutes, and the only person who believes that wait times greater than 15 minutes should still be considered frequent service is a person who never rides the bus. Additionally, the on-time performance of our overburdened, let's call them nominally frequent bus routes, means that scheduled route frequencies rarely correspond with reality. I raise the issue of Trimet's atrophied frequent service network because these streetcar agreements substantially conflate streetcar with frequent bus service. Funding levels are based on the cost of otherwise providing frequent bus service on a streetcar line, and the documents make clear that if or when Trimet funding for frequent service increases, streetcar subsidies will be increased by an equivalent amount. This may seem an innocent enough proposition, but in the context of currently unacceptable levels of bus service, this is a dangerous commitment. When funding is available to increase frequent service, that funding should be invested in our bus system itself. A system that meets Trimet's primary goals of improving mobility rather than subsidizing tertiary goals like economic development, which even the most adamant supporters of streetcar admit are its main contribution to the region and a benefit which buses also provide. Even more troubling is the way in which this document actually prioritizes streetcar funding over funding for frequent bus service. At first glance, this prioritization may not be clear, especially because some considerations are included to keep streetcar funding as part of the annual budget process. But these documents only create a formal framework for increasing streetcar subsidies. Other than vague annual budget considerations, these documents are silent about conditions under which subsidies for streetcar will be reduced. It's like a ratchet that only works in one direction. Suggested benchmarks are offered to increase Trimet's share of streetcar operations to as much as 85%. But what happens when streetcar lines fail to meet expectations, or when, for whatever reason, ridership on streetcar declines? Trimet's experience with the Green Line should serve as a warning. The streetcar subsidy that fails to formally address these issues is a subsidy that isn't realistic or just. Ad hoc and vague assurances that streetcar funding will be reduced when or if appropriate are cold comfort to people who depend on buses and trains and deserve more investment in real mobility options. It's also entirely contrary to the well-intentioned purpose of these formalized agreements. I see no further comments. Have my written comments.
Yes, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks.
So before we take action on this, any other comments or questions for the staff? Okay. With that, then let's get a motion on the table, which would adopt Resolution 12-0764, authorizing streetcar master agreement and streetcar operating agreement with the City of Portland. Do I hear a motion? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. So with that, before we take a vote, maybe let's go down the line, see if there's any comments or questions of the folks. Director Zaragoza, any comments or questions? No? Not seeing any down here? Oh, go ahead. I guess down here. Go ahead. You want to go first?
Gotcha. I just have a couple of comments in regards to Mr. Fontes. Thank you for this information. This is some good information and good fodder for future conversation and discussion in regards to our costs and operations. It's always fun to see it in graphical form because it's so much easier to begin to take that information and it really brings it forward to our minds in regards to what's going on. So this is good information. As a board member of Trimet, and both comments I greatly appreciate, I do want to say and let you know where I sit. I think all the information that you shared is very critical, and the ideas of the cost of additional cars being on the road based on the streetcar. I think that's good information. But I'll let you know a but's coming. In all the information, statistics, and numbers that we see and get shared, I think there's some subjectivity to some of the information. And from where I sit, I see streetcars as a benefit, and the fact that we don't have to. And I think you said from the start, you said that you support the resolution with some changes, and I do appreciate that. But I really do see the streetcar as something that's a complement to the rest of the system that we have, and the multimodal process that we have is, I think, one of Portland's, major situations that we're in right now is looking towards the future, and not always looking towards next month or next year. I think it's very critical that we continue to do that. We continue to take a look at where do we want to be in regards to the environment and the ability to develop economically, give people jobs, move them from poverty to prosperity. So that's why I'm fully supportive of this. But I also want to say that from an individual board standpoint, I do want to personally take a look at, how do we make sure that other areas aren't, we're not diminishing service in other key areas as we're subsidizing some other areas. So that's something that I think we talked about at the work session, and then we'll continue to take a look at. I'm not willing at this point to put an amendment in there, but I certainly want to let it be known that your conversations and testimony today haven't fallen on deaf ears, and it's something that as a board member and as an individual, I want to continue to look at and make sure that it's critical in the forefront of what I'm doing and what I'm looking at. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I will say for the record that I support the resolution. I think it's a really good template for the streetcar. especially in terms of future expansions of the streetcar. It gets us all at the table talking about this. It sets, I think, a standard and expectation not only for the city of Portland, but maybe in the future for the city of Hillsborough or somebody in the city of Gresham on the east side in terms of desires for other types of service. And I think it is a very important service. I think, we clearly have a role in making sure people have opportunities for transit, but I think one of the reasons they have transit is for opportunities to get to employment centers and the job. And so this is really important. It's a way to, again, provide options to folks. I don't think it's a premium service, as Opal suggested during our budget process, but I think it is important to note, as Director Stovall said, that every year we're going to need to prioritize and look at our budget and make decisions based on funds available. So, again, I think it's well understood in putting this agreement together that this is always subject to the discretion of the board and our appropriation of appropriate dollars to do the work for the streetcar and all the others. And I would point out for Jared that we believe that, again, the bus system is the backbone of the transit system here. And I think what you just heard is 153 new buses coming in the next year and a half. That's pretty substantial. And we really applaud that, and I think that service in those buses is very important. We want to continue to make that a priority. And I'm looking forward to some dialogue about how we move forward in the future to make sure that happens. So I'm supportive of this, and I am not prepared to make any amendments at this time. Any other comments? Okay, with that, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of Resolution 12-0765, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Thank
Just
you.
for the record, it's 64 to
Go ahead.
65.
64, the first one. Thank you very much. Everybody understand that? Yes, 64. All right, 64. I understood that.
And was that with Hillsborough?
I think I'm going to lose the rest of it. All right, so again, Resolution 12-07-64 is approved. All right. Moving on to Resolution 12-07-65, which is authorizing a contract with Landscape Forms, Inc. for final design and fabrication of station amenities for the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Transit Project. Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, this was a contract award subject related to an RFP for the various amenities that are required on a station platform. Not in your pre-prepared materials, as we thought, but on your place is actually a description, a little picture of what it is that we are buying with this contract, and the very important elements of our customer information and customer comfort amenities. The very good news about this contract is that we received a very competitive price. Our engineer's estimate based on past experiences with these sorts of procurements was $3.9 million. Both of these proposers actually were in the $3 million range. So it's performing well under budget, and that's the really good news. We obviously, with an RFP, consider a number of different things. The technical score and the price score combined came to the conclusion that Landscape Forms would be the best choice contractor in this situation. I would also note that this was on your agenda previously. We deferred it until this meeting because there was a protest that was filed by the second responder. That protest was deemed we rejected that protest, and the protester had the opportunity to actually ask for reconsideration of that. That did not occur by the deadline, which was July 5th. So the protest is not active at this point in time, or not current. So again, we would recommend award of this contract to Landscape Forms. One thing that I would note about this, and it was of concern, is the level of DBE participation is very low. That, to a large extent, is because this is a manufacturer without much opportunity for subcontracting. But that said, we will be working with this contractor to try to increase that. And then the other part of it is that as these amenities are actually installed on the platform, we'll be working to ensure that we have strong DBE participation in that level of work as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? see nobody wants to testify on this item, so with that, I would ask for a motion for approval of Resolution 12-07-65.
So moved.
Have a motion?
I'll second, Mr. President, and I'd like to offer some comments. I'm very pleased to see that Trimet was able to go back and work towards talking and clarifying something around the DBE participation and realizing that it is a manufacturing contract, but and their commitment to ask to work to increase that. And I would also like to concur and ask that as Trimet is dealing with landscape form, that they would also ask them to work about increasing their own participation in their own workforce, because that will greatly help aid in this situation as well.
Thank you. Other comments on the resolution before us?
Well, I just got a quick comment
Please.
in regards to just, I know in the CAT report it said that we've got an ad hoc committee working with the MLR line in regards to situations in regards to CAT. I just want to make sure as we continue forward, I did get an opportunity to take a walk around the mall with Mr. Levine, and he pointed out some things that were, in regards to accessible transportation. I just want to continue to highlight the fact as we build new to keep that in the forefront. I don't have any specific questions or concerns. I just wanted to raise the point as we look to do things like this to make sure that we've got that in our priority list.
The ADA compliance issues.
ADA compliance issues, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Any other comments down on this end? Seeing none, then, I would call for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 12-07-65, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion is approved unanimously. Moving on then to Resolution 3 of, actually it's, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resolutions. It's Resolution 12-07-66, 12-07-67, 12-07-68, 12-07-69, and 12-07-70, authorizing modifications to contracts with 5 artists for the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Transit Project. Mr. Reminder, staff report.
Board President, members of the board, since 1992, Trimet has really led the way with the public art process associated with all of our major project investments. And the Portland-Milwaukee project, I'm proud to say, has led or continued in that stream and actually led with some, I think, very interesting and innovative art projects. To a very large extent, we delegate the authority to this to a public art advisory committee that we appoint for the project, and it entails membership from the communities that are directly affected. And to a very large extent, what I think has been really rich about our art program is that it tries to bring out really the heart and soul and the history of the communities through which our lines pass through. Sometimes that's very happy history, and other times it's not so happy history. You know, you can look at the interstate line and see a great sculpture related to the jazz clubs that were around the interstate area, and you can also see the very sad notion, in a very uplifting way, of the internment camp that was held at Expo Center. So these, I think, have helped enrich our lines and helped enrich our communities. And I would say that we have a series of art projects for the Portland-Milwaukee project that are in front of you here today for final approval of the contract with the artists that actually do the same thing related to the new series of communities that we pass through. One of our key goals with all of our projects is to be a very good neighbor. I think all of these art projects are a good neighbor and will help enrich the neighborhoods through which we pass. So with that, we have public art staff here and others who would be willing to answer any questions, but I would certainly recommend approval to the board. Thank you.
Why don't we ask Eleanor Hunter, who's here and wants to testify on this on behalf of the Art Citizens Advisory Committee, to testify, and we'll see if there's any questions from the board. Okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Yes, my name is Eleanor Hunter, and I'm currently the chair of the Oak Grove Community Council, which is the area just south of Milwaukee. As a representative of that area, I was asked to be on the Art Advisory Committee, and I'm here to help you understand the wonderfulness of the art program. One of the things we've been talking about is the need for the Trimet program to get people to and from work. It's also a way of having pride in our areas and having beauty as well. The Oak Grove area has had a very interesting history lately with the artwork that has been proposed for that area. As a member of the committee, I think we've been meeting since March of 2010, I have been so impressed by the quality and the integrity, both of the staff and of my fellow committee members. The conversations we have are blunt, enriching, lively. I mean, we're talking about art here. There's objective, there's subjective. There's a lot that goes on. One of the things that's happened on the art committee is to ensure that not only is there geographic representation of people on the committee for all of the different communities that Orange Line will be going through, but there's also a balance of temperament, of personality, of knowledge of the art community, of knowledge of the communities in the area, the neighborhoods. It's a very rich conversation. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot that goes on. So do you have any questions or thoughts or wonderings?
Well, let's see. Why don't we just sit there for the moment and see if there are any comments. Director Switzer?
I just want to applaud the group. Some great, diverse pieces that I think will only enhance the neighborhood that the line is going through, but also speaks well of Trimet. So thank you for your time that you put into this and being here today. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, as the committee, by looking through the arts, we've probably seen, all of us have looked through thousands of slides, tens of websites, resumes, different arts presentations that may come, and again, the level of consideration for what's the site, what's the need at that site, what are the arts that are appropriate for that. So many levels of involvement and consideration go on. It's been a wildly engaging and rich and really satisfying community to be on. And it's a wonderful thing to have this testament of these enduring pieces that really create an art collection for the entire city and for the region. And it's really an honor to be part of that. So.
Great. I mean, I was kind of excited.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, thank you very much. We're ready to take action. So without further discussion, I would entertain a single motion, right, Janet?
Yes.
Single motion to approve resolutions 12-07-66 through 12-0770. Do I have a motion approving those resolutions?
So moved. So second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by the board? If not, I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion and the resolutions are approved unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you again for your service. Do we have any artists here in the audience here today? No,
Or are there other members of the committee?
Well, two key members of the staff I'd like to point out.
Okay.
So, Mary Priester
Good. Thank you very, very much. All right, moving on. Resolution 12-07-71, which is authorizing Trimet to acquire by purchase or by exercise of the power of eminent domain certain real property necessary to the construction of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project. Mr. Manager.
Board President, members of the board, this is pursuant to your discussion about condemnation matters and the threshold by which you wanted to see particular items. This is a property called the Watermole Properties on Division Street, near Division and 8th in Portland, and there are occasional maps associated with this. I would note that this, at an early stage of the project, we thought this would be a partial acquisition, but based on applying certain city standards for the streets itself, this became a full take and therefore moved into the threshold where board approval is required. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, but that I'll keep my report short and respond to questions as you need.
Do you see any questions or comments from the board?
Just a quick question, so this is ongoing, you know?
In terms of the status of the acquisition?
Yes.
Yeah, so, again, I think it's very important to know, I appreciate that, that our discussions are ongoing. What the filing of the condemnation would allow us is to continue those negotiations, but also will allow the property owner access to the funds that we deposited during the term of those conversations. So there's some advantages for both parties typically in advancing the process through the condemnation process.
Seeing no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 12-07-71.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion and the resolution are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And then the last resolution we have on our agenda this morning is Resolution 12-07-72, which is regarding establishment of the Trimet Defined Contribution Retirement Plan for union representative employees. Mr. General Manager will give some background on this one.
Members of the board, again, as I reported during my remarks, we were successful in having the arbitrator award the Trimet proposal a couple of weeks ago. One element of that is that new union employees that will be hired will be enrolled in a defined contribution plan, which is akin to a 401k. The elements of that plan are in all substantive ways identical to that defined contribution plan that we have available for non-union employees that are currently hired at Trimet. So there would be equality between the union and non-union ranks in that regard. But because of different, for example, representatives on the Pension Trust Committee and a few other details, it will require the creation of a separate plan. And so this resolution authorizes the general manager to approve that plan as it's developed. It's important for us to have this in place by August 1st. So it is date critical, and we it's a very important element to be able to get in place related to the implementation of the Traders Award. So with that, I would recommend approval, and Randy or Beth, if you're available for questions, should there be any as well.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Comments, questions? We have been briefed a bit on this ruling and its impact, so I think we're aware of what's going on here. No comments or questions, then I guess I would call for a motion to approve Resolution 12-07-72.
So moved.
And a second here. So before I take action on this, is there an opportunity for our board to comment further before we vote? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 12-07-72, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion and the resolution are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. So, other business. Do we have any other business coming before us today that's not on the agenda? Anything from the board? Okay. With that, I'm going to adjourn our business meeting of July 21st, 2012, and we'll go on to our public forum, which the public forum is an opportunity for people to address the Trimet Board on issues that are not part of our regular agenda. I believe we have about 10 folks who want to testify this morning. I am going to ask that you be brief, 3 minutes with the timer. And again, I'll ask you to come up 2 at a time here to help us move along.
Yes, and I don't know how long all of this is, but given the fact that we have a finance committee meeting at 11, is it fair to let people know that we really need to conclude this portion of the meeting at 11?
Thank you, Mark. You've done that. I appreciate that. I actually did the math. I think everybody's limited to the 3 minutes, which is pretty fine. But thank you for we have one more. So. All right. So the first 2, Cynthia Grossman and Alan Eisenberg.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You did take the bus in, didn't you?
Light rail.
Light rail. Good for you. Thank you very much. I know you did. By the way, congratulations on getting new buses. I'll tell you, as a rider, I'm glad to see that old junk getting off the road. It's just part of the problem in keeping frequent service when they have buses that go back to 88, 89 that are breaking down and there are no parts for it. It's kind of hard to provide service. So I'm glad that we got that done. Okay, so there's just a couple of things. I want to ask the board a question. Are any of you familiar in the realm of transportation with what is known as the Brazil model? Caratiba? ERT?
Yes.
Thank you. Has any consideration been given as a flexible mode of transportation, particularly to the outlying areas, which need a lot more flexibility than a fixed route on steel can provide? Has there been given any thought to BRT? And I know there are a lot of problems with it, and I'm glad to hear that. Is there something that is actually being worked on? I know all the political garbage you got to go through, I understand. But is there actually something in the pipeline that we can get to, which will, by the way, for those of you who are not familiar on the board with it, Caratiba is a city in Brazil which had a horrible, horrible problem with pollution. They came in, they closed the CBD, Central Business District. No traffic, public transportation, period. You paid before you get on the station. There are doors to go in, there are doors to exit. Everybody knows it. And guess what? They don't have problems, they collect their fares, they get all of that money. But that's not why I'm here today. That's not why I'm here today. I have a question. Trimet has been under a wage freeze for at least 4 years now. How long is it now?
You're talking about the management, non-representative?
Management, right.
I think that's right, isn't it?
4 years?
3.5.
3.5. Number two, I have a question on disciplinary procedure. Discipline is the venue of the district known as Trimet. I have called in a complaint about an employee, and I waited quite a long time and never received a response to that complaint. And so I called in a second complaint on that employee. For your information, it refers to reference number 37801, and I'll give you a little background on that. When Fred Hansen was general manager, I called in a complaint on him. And guess what? His secretary called me up and said that Fred would like to speak to me. And we spoke with each other and we cleared up exactly what had to be happened. We understood that as any employee in Trimet, he was just as liable to have a complaint called in as a compliment called in. And I enjoyed working with that. I did call in a complaint on General Manager Neil McFarlane, and then I called a second one after requesting a verbal response and or a written response. I received nothing. This is not the model, thank you. This is not the model that we need for future development of management and or workers that are above the procedures that are in place. It at least should have been addressed, Neil. It at least should have been addressed. And Fred did do that. And that's what it's about. You can't make progress if you don't talk to anybody. Sure, I'm not you, sure I'm not anything else. But the problem is that you avoided what other employees in the company have to do, which is to respond to a complaint in a timely manner or have their superiors address them.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenberg. You made your point well, and I'll talk to the general manager about the response.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cynthia.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to hit a little secondary issue first, just to get it out of the way because I don't know if I'll ever come back here again. And that's my issue with Trimet and parents with oversized strollers. Having a baby doesn't make you disabled, but parents take up the front seating, they put the benches up, and they take over the available seating for the seniors and disabled. And many of the strollers are stuck with bags while parents carry the child or the child is walking. And I've seen drivers tell other passengers that have those small upright basket carts with 4 wheels that they're not allowed on the bus. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I see this quite often on the bus number 12 Barber Boulevard, which I ride a lot. So now my primary reason for coming is concerns regarding the number 12 Barber Boulevard bus. I am extremely light sensitive, so here I am here, how are we ready? Okay. And I have balance issues and use a cane, so I use both the Lyft and Trimet services. I ride the bus number 12 Barber Boulevard 5 days a week on average, and live off the 30th and Southwest Barber. So the express bus is no use to me until you put a stop between Terwilliger and the Barber Transit Center. Okay? Just to let you know, I quit driving 7 years ago for the safety of others due to my eyes. So my license, but I don't drive. So Trimet customer service has been hearing from me for the past year. They pretty much know me regarding the lack of service and longer wait times on number 12. And this has become worse with the last schedule change. The time between the buses in the last few years has went down from used to be about 15 minutes with 10 minutes in rush hour. Now it's 25 or more minutes with 15 or more minutes during rush hour. And then you changed you had made a recent change in your definition of what frequent was, which I found amusing as well. And we all know that it's impossible for a bus traveling from the Gresham to Sherwood areas on Barber and Sandy Boulevard to stay on schedule. I mean, I'm not here to complain about that. That's just an impossibility. And I understand that with the drivers. I ride a majority in the afternoons, and 80% of the time now, number 12 is packed with people standing the full length of the bus. My last email to Trimet customer service on overcrowding was Saturday, June 30th, which I gave you guys a copy of in my packet. And one thing I stated was, drivers are great overall, but overcrowding due to shrinking number of buses available makes this line ripe for confrontation. I received a response, a thank you non-response, on Monday, July 2nd. The usual 2-letter response email. And then finally on Saturday, July 7th at 7 p.m., I was physically assaulted by another passenger on bus number 12 as I was violently grabbed and pushed off the overcrowded bus as I tried to get off my stop. I called and sent an email on the assault that weekend, which is also in the packet I gave you. I'm not satisfied with my call I received back from Trimet. There is no one concerned with the overcrowding and potential for more violence on bus number 12. I cannot get on the number 12 bus to go home if people are standing in the aisles. I am afraid. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for coming. We'll just follow up on that.
Now we just know that Mr. Vanetta can provide you some information about the service changes that will occur in September, but there are some improvements, I think, underway for Line 12, including more peak hour service and a change in the routing to make the schedules more reliable during the day.
I saw something about that, but yeah, it's unbelievable. So.
Thank you for coming. The next two people, I have Chris Wallman and Cameron Johnson. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we have Nicole Johnson come up too. Okay.
Let's bring him and go ahead and see.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Do you mind if I just use the mic so one time through again?
There's Chris. You want to let Chris to go first, though?
Yeah, you can go right ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Two things for you real quick. I'm concerned that in the summer months and sometimes in the winter months, the buses seem not to be, the HVAC units seem not to be working sometimes, and in the summer, well, the past few months, both on Lyft and Fixed Route, I've noticed that the temperature outside is cooler, even though it's warmer than the temperature inside the bus, because the air conditioning units are not working. And so that makes it really hard to be comfortable as you're traveling, because you're sweating all the time and everything. And to, as I brought before you guys before, not as this person wanted as or Pat, but just wondering if you guys have continued to think about the overpass issue. I tried to get on a bus just for a short trip down to pick up my pass in Hillsborough earlier this month, and it was like the second day after the first of the month, and they wouldn't let me on because even though I was going to Albertsons right from my house to get it, it was second day of the month, they said over the first day. So I just was wondering if that had any more talks been pursued on that. So those two.
I'm not aware of any, but we can follow up with you, Chris.
Thank you for coming, Chris.
Yep.
Cameron?
Hello, Mr. President, board members. I'm here today to express my frustration at the development of the past month and to find out what Trimet, both board and staff, are going to do about it. Because at the moment, it appears that you, the board members, are just fine doing nothing whatsoever. So far, you have sat comfortably as Trimet files its own bus drivers, puts the screws to bus drivers, and continues to waste our money on things we the riders, excuse me, I'm not a driver, we the riders don't really need and can't afford. Mr. McFarland declares victory, yet the arbitrator clearly held that many of his practices were illegal and wrong. He said that this ruling has saved bus riders $5 million in additional cuts when he told us that the contingency fund had money that was supposed to cover that cost. I know you all believe this to be true because you use the arbitration as partial justification for such a big contingency. And Mr. McFarland concedes to Sam Adams when he calls Mountain Youth Path, but won't budge when hundreds of bus riders express frustration with the broken system. What puts me over the edge, however, is that none of you are challenging him in fulfilling your duty as a board member. Decisions you make won't affect you because you do not ride and or rely on transit. I am a bus rider. I depend on the bus, and I'm sure I know more about our system than you do. Maybe I should be on the Trimet board, so you guys would love that. I'm committed to bringing positive change in the system. Whether we change who gets the privilege of serving on this board, because it is a privilege, or how the appointment process works, we need to change because it's not working for us, the people that depend on the system the most. I've come to find that it is, in fact, those riders who care the most about the system. They are the ones willing to work for a better system. They are the ones showing up in crowd-bursting groups to do that. They're the ones going all over the city to bring people together. Opal or otherwise, they're willing to do what it takes as long as they're going to keep doing what's right, so will I. It's the fact that there are hundreds or even thousands more that are committed to change just like I am that keep me from losing my will and often my sanity. I think you should take example from these transit riders. As much as we care about the system, you should care more. Because you are the ones in charge. It's our belief in change that drives us, and change that will hopefully break through the system as well. We're active and impassioned about the idea of a fair and just transit system. And I wish I could say the same about you.
Thank you, Cameron. Appreciate your comments. Nicole Johnson and Marchera Besser.
I learned he was born and raised in New York, where he worked as a science teacher. And I also learned that he was using a cane because diabetes had limited the usage of his right leg. So since he couldn't drive, he was transit dependent. He told me the main reason he moved to Portland was because of the great transit system. He loved that he could get almost anywhere with our bus system. He said recently the bus system has gone through a lot of changes, and it's not as great as it was 10 years ago. I learned a lot about his life and his experience on the bus, and I was very grateful. Another woman I met shared a story about her commute to work. She was concerned about the bus lane flow that we were already previously talking about, and how the route was going to be split between the Park Rose Transit Center. Because her route was further than Park Rose, she would have to pay twice to get to work. She felt that this wasn't fair, and I agree and feel the same way. From these stories, you can see that the transit system is very important to a bus rider's life. It's their way of transportation to get to work, to shop, go to school, etc. I know that we can bring it back how it was and even make it better. This is why I'm here today. And I feel that Trimet and transit riders have to work together to make our transit system reliable, frequent, and affordable. Thank you.
3 minutes on the button.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Michaela. I'm a senior at Portland State. This summer I'm working with Opal as an intern as an organizer and trainee. Our transportation system in Portland is one of the unique things about living here. I have a car, but it's very expensive and it adds pollution to our environment. So I take public transportation as an alternative to consider my environment. Fare increases is going to cause many people like myself to consider driving because riding the bus is not as affordable. With the fare increase, I'm considering using my car as my primary choice of transportation, which will add more pollution to our environment. During the last 3 weeks, I've worked as an organizer and I've spoke with many riders that are going to be affected by the raise. Many of the riders that I speak with on a daily basis and ride our transportation system on a daily basis want to keep it around, affordable, and effective. But one of the riders I spoke with named Crystal is a student at PCC and a part-time employee. I spoke with Crystal on the number 72. She's in her mid-20s and she was riding the bus on her way to work. Since Crystal is in her mid-20s, she can't afford a youth pass, but she is a student. So in our conversation, Crystal explained how she really enjoys riding the bus. Some of the most interesting conversations that she has takes place on the number 72. Crystal wants to keep riding the bus, and she feels that it's a cheap way to get around for people in a low-income community. But with the fare increase, public transportation is becoming less affordable for people of low income and people of color. Crystal won't be able to afford the new price of the Go Anywhere fare. I hear this from many of the riders that I speak with while bus organizing. I feel that it's important that Trimet understands that our riders appreciate the service, but the riders also want to be appreciated as well. Fare increase is going to impact many low-income riders that need to do basic things like going to school, work, and everyday tasks. So moving forward, I ask you, the board, to take consideration of the fare increase on low-income riders and people of color. The most ridership comes from vulnerable populations that can't afford the fare increase. When I mention that Trimet is increasing the fare to people in East Portland, they are enraged and unhappy. Taking into account vulnerable populations in your decisions will help you, the board, it will help ridership, it will help people in their daily lives, and most importantly, Trimet's reputation. Trimet can benefit from collaborating between transit-dependent individuals, and in the near future, this should be our main goal, to keep them priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent testimony. I guess thank you for coming. I want you folks to know that we struggled with a lot of issues you're dealing with. You're brought forward with us today. None of us like fare increases or service reductions, and we needed to make some changes moving forward, but we understand your position and really want to look to ways to improve accessibility and transportation for all riders. And I think Director Consuelo Zaragoza did an excellent job of setting some monies aside to help us deal with this in this next fiscal year. And so stay tuned. There's going to be some other things that we'll be doing, but ultimately we know it's a tough time for Trimet. Thank you for coming. I have Lynn Barrett and Terrence Coleman. Okay. Please come on up. Good morning. Lynn, please proceed.
Sure. For the last 6 weeks, I've been organizing with Opal Bus Riders Unite, and there's an awful lot of cynicism from your customers. Mostly I hear that Trimet doesn't even care about the people who pay for and use the system the most. I hear people say that paying more is very bad for them, but most disturbing is they say the very next fare hike, which they feel is inevitable, means that people will not be able to go to the library so often, to their kids' games, to church, etc. I met a young woman, Ginger, while organizing, and she lives out of East Portland and has a part-time job in Beaverton. Near her home, people are parking in the bus stop. There haven't been any tickets issued, so she has to go further to the next bus stop since the driver can't see her at that stop. She also walks about 30 blocks from 94th and Foster to 125th and Foster on Sundays because it's such a long wait, her ticket expires. That's very poor service. Most people are willing to pay more, but feel that this is just a habit. Every year, fares go up. And people also often comment that the prices go up every 6 months, but we educate them and tell them, no, you just hear about it, and then it actually happens. So it seems like it happens more than it actually does. Yeah. And when people ask, and they do ask, we do tell them that most board members don't use this service, that they make decisions about, and you make decisions about our transportation. If this is all about money, how will you make your budget next year without raising prices? Those of us that are unemployed, underemployed, do not get a raise for inflation like you've taken every year for the last 10 years. You've taken away Fairless Square, the free rail zone, and basically affordable service for those who need it the most. Please manage your checkbook as if it were your very own. When you make a mistake in your checking account, who do you go to for money? The neighbor, your boss, your friends? No, you deal with it here with federal funding and a win against the union. You're having a banner year with the extra money, and I feel that you owe us a year or two of no fare increases or service cuts while rebuilding your system. In closing, I'd like to remind you that Bus Riders Unite is very pro-Trimet. We really like Trimet and feel the bus riders are not being considered when you make decisions. Please worry about the bus oh my goodness, I want to be a driver, I really do. The bus riders, since we bring in most of your money. And lastly, I want to thank you, Mr. McFarlane, for stating that you want to work towards growing bus service so that more students can get to school and get school buses off the road. That's what we like to hear. We want to grow the bus service, so we really do appreciate your work. We just feel this. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn. Mr. Coleman.